This isn't fiction, this was Hitler's actual plan if Germany won World War II. And the reality is far more terrifying than you think. For Germany to win World War II, 3 critical battles had to go differently. First, the Battle of Britain in 1940. Second, Operation Barbarossa in 1941. Hitler's invasion of the Soviet Union. Third, D-Day in 1944. So let's assume all 3 happened. By 1946, Hitler controls everything from the Atlantic Ocean to the Ural Mountains. Over 400 million people live under Nazi rule. But winning the war was just the beginning. Now came the truly horrifying part, implementing the master plan. Generalplan Ost, the master plan. The emptied land would be repopulated with German settlers. Millions of German families would move east to farm the conquered territories. The Slavic people would be reduced to a permanent underclass, forbidden from education, forbidden from owning property, forbidden from even learning to read. The Holocaust, which killed 6 million Jews in our timeline, would have expanded exponentially. With total control of Europe, Hitler would have had the resources to murder every Jew, Roma, and undesirable person on the continent. Historians estimate the death toll would have reached 50 to 80 million people by 1960. And then there was Germania. Hitler's obsession. He planned to completely rebuild Berlin into the capital of the world. The city would be renamed Germania and feature buildings so massive they would dwarf anything ever constructed. The centerpiece would be the Volkshalle, the People's Hall. A dome so enormous it could fit St. Peter's Basilica inside it 16 times. The building would hold 180,000 people. At the top would be a giant eagle clutching a swastika, visible for miles. A massive triumphal arch, twice the size of the Arc de Triomphe in Paris, would honor Germany's war dead. A 5-kilometer-long avenue would connect these monuments, lined with captured weapons from defeated nations. This wasn't just architecture. This was a statement: the 1,000-year Reich had arrived, and it would never fall. The terrible global consequences. Germany's ambitions didn't stop at Europe. With the continent secured, Hitler had 3 targets left: Britain, the Middle East, and eventually, the United States. Britain faced an impossible choice. Surrender and become a puppet state, or face total starvation through U-boat blockades. With no allies left, most historians believe Winston Churchill would have been overthrown in a coup. A pro-Nazi government would have taken power, and Britain would have signed a humiliating peace treaty. The British Empire, Canada, Australia, India, South Africa, would have been forced to recognize Nazi dominance. The Commonwealth would have fractured. India might have gained independence, but under the shadow of German influence. Next, the Middle East. Hitler needed oil to fuel his empire. German forces would have swept through Iraq, Iran, and Saudi Arabia. The Suez Canal would become Germany's gateway to Africa and Asia. Palestine would have seen the complete extermination of its Jewish population. Africa would have been carved up between Germany and Italy. The entire continent would have returned to colonial rule, but far more brutal than anything seen in the 19th century. Millions of Africans would have been enslaved to extract resources for the Reich. And then there's America. Hitler couldn't invade the United States directly, the Atlantic Ocean was too wide, and the US military too powerful. But he didn't need to invade. With all of Europe's resources and scientists, Germany would have developed nuclear weapons by 1947, 2 years after the US did in our timeline. But unlike America, Hitler had no moral restraint about using them. The Cold War wouldn't be USA versus USSR. It would be USA versus Nazi Germany. 2 nuclear superpowers, locked in a standoff. Except one side was led by a genocidal dictator who believed in racial supremacy and world domination. By 1960, the world would be divided into 3 blocks, Nazi Europe controlling everything from France to Central Asia. Imperial Japan controlling China, Southeast Asia, and the Pacific. And a terrified, isolated America, surrounded by fascist empires. There would be no United Nations. No human rights. No democracy anywhere except the Americas. The entire concept of freedom would be a distant memory. So, what if Germany won World War II? The answer is simple: hell on earth. Tens of millions dead in the immediate aftermath. Hundreds of millions enslaved. Entire cultures erased from existence. Democracy extinct everywhere except the Americas. A world ruled by fascism, racism, and endless brutality. But here's the thing: Germany never could have won. Not really. Even if they had taken Moscow, even if D-Day had failed, the sheer industrial power of the United States was unstoppable. By 1944, America was producing more planes, tanks, and ships than Germany, Japan, and Italy combined. The Nazi economy was built on plunder and slave labor, unsustainable in the long term. The Reich would have eventually collapsed from within, torn apart by resistance movements, economic failure, and the impossibility of controlling 400 million hostile people. But for a few decades, the world would have been unrecognizable. And millions more would have died before the inevitable fall. That's the terrifying reality of what if Germany won World War II. Thank God it never happened. What are your thoughts? Do you think it would be far worse? Do let us know in the comment box. If you haven't already, do subscribe to this channel for more such cutting-edge war and history stories. Thanks for stopping by.